If you're thinking about getting into Section 8 real estate investing, in this video, I'm going to be going over all the pros and cons. I currently own several different Section 8 properties in Washington, D.C., so I have a good amount of experience with this. And to start the video, what exactly is Section 8? In a nutshell, it's basically where the government is going to pay either a portion or in some cases the full amount of a lower income residence's rent. And this could be for really any type of property. It could be a studio condo in the nicest neighborhood, or it could be like a 10-bedroom house in, quote unquote, the worst neighborhood. So there's really just like a voucher and they can just use it wherever they want. Now, the first pro is that it is guaranteed income from the government. And I can't emphasize this enough because it can be kind of a hassle, almost like a part-time job, tracking down rent from some of these tenants. I have one property where there's like 5 different tenants and they all pay in money orders and they all pay on different days. And some of them are mailing the check. Some of them want me to meet them there on Tuesday at 2 p.m. And there's just like all this back and forth. It's like herding cats. So just having an automatic deposit is a really cool thing. Additionally, most counties and cities are going to have a website where it tells you exactly how much rent you could get based on the amount of bedrooms and then based on either the neighborhood or zip code. So Washington, D.C., it's like depending on what neighborhood it is and how many bedrooms, I know exactly how much I'm going to get. A lot of real estate investors are like, oh, can I get $3,000 a month for here or there? And there's still like some question marks in the air. With Section 8, it's very easy and straightforward. And then if you want to increase the rent, because you got to keep up with this crazy inflation, there's basically just like a straightforward like one-page document that you submit to the city, goes through the process, and then you can increase the rent. So it's not too much of a headache and there's not like crazy rent control or anything like that. The next pro is that the rental rates are actually really good. There's a lot of misconceptions out there that maybe Section 8 doesn't pay as much as, just standard rates, or maybe that it pays more. At least in my case, in Washington, D.C., I found that the rental rates for Section 8 are actually slightly above market rates. And it is really going to vary depending on the neighborhood, but some neighborhoods might just be extremely higher than another neighborhood for whatever reason. So you really have to kind of check zip codes, check neighborhoods. And then another cool thing is that depending on the amount of bedrooms, you can get significantly more. And yeah, that's obvious, like any type of rental property with more bedrooms can get more. However, I've found with Section 8 that you can really get like extremely more than market rent if you have like a 5, 6, 7, or like 8-bedroom house, something crazy like that. I was actually just looking at a 16-bedroom house, and that house, I didn't end up purchasing it because it had too many zoning issues, too many things going on. However, you should really check, if you can add an extra bedroom with Section 8, because there's families that are looking that might have like 5 or 6 kids, and they need a big place, and there's not a lot of those properties out there. So with Section 8, as long as you can have like a legal, safe, clean, updated type of bedroom, you can get significantly more. We're going to talk a little bit about the inspections in a second here. Pro number 3 is that there are lower vacancy rates. So if you're a landlord, one of your biggest expenses is going to be like the turnover from year to year. So that's what really kills you. You could get the premium rent, but if someone's like moving out, that's going to be almost a month of lost rent unless you can get someone in there quickly. But like showing the place with them in there can be difficult. Then you got to fix it up. Then you got to find someone new. So with Section 8, you don't really have that problem. There's a ton of demand for Section 8 housing. And because the government is paying some or basically all of the tenants' rent, they want to stay there for a while. They don't want to, mess that up at all. And additionally, because it's lower income residents that are doing Section 8 and voucher programs and things like that, they may not have the means to, move to a new place every 6 months, every year. So they want to stay there. They want to keep getting those vouchers and keep living in the property so long as you maintain it and it works for them. The next pro is that the tenants that already have Section 8 vouchers have already been pre-screened by the city or county. And there's different qualifications depending on the city or county. But there's an application process to qualify for Section 8. And you should still do your own application process. But anytime someone's already been like pre-vetted, that chances are that's going to be a better resident than if you just chose, some random person. Also, with most Section 8 voucher programs, the voucher can be revoked for different reasons. If the tenant was to like destroy the property, or maybe there was like drug dealing or different things going on that would make them a bad tenant, basically, their voucher can be revoked. And vouchers are not always easy to get. So there's a lot of incentive for the tenant to maintain the property and do a good job of keeping it up. Pro number 5 is that besides Section 8 investing being extremely profitable if done correctly, it feels good to provide good quality housing, to low lower income residents, especially if you start adding amenities. Like I have a property I'm about to add laundry, we're going to add parking, we're going to make the landscaping look really nice. It just feels good to provide that to lower income residents who might not have had that opportunity before. And maybe previously they were living in a building where the landlord didn't care. Maybe it was more like a slumlord. So if you fix it up, take care of the residents, take care of the property, it can be very rewarding. Before we jump into the cons, if you're looking to get into Section 8 investing, definitely reach out to me in one of the links below, or you can reach out to me on social media. I do different types of mentorships, and I also have all the resources that I use as a real estate investor below. So definitely check those out. Okay, so let's talk about the cons now, because like any good thing, there's always pros and cons. So con number one is the amount of red tape and bureaucracy that you need to go through to get set up with Section 8 real estate investing. When I was first getting started, I tried to do this all on my own. I tried to reach out to the government and say, hey, I'm looking to get some Section 8 tenants in here. And I was looking for that fast response from the government. It didn't really happen that way. In fact, I think it went like several weeks of just like reaching out, getting no response, getting answers to, people telling me to contact this person, then contact that person. It was just this whole difficult thing. However, what I realized is that in every city, for the most part, there's different companies that like specialize in placing Section 8 tenants. So I basically just said, okay, you guys handle all the paperwork and I'll pay you, your fee, and we'll all be happy. So once I got set up with them, it was obviously much easier because they handled all the showings, they screened the tenants, they set up, basically the payment options. However, it still took I think 60 days to get paid and to set everything up. So it took a little bit longer, and then there was just an extreme amount of paperwork. It was basically 3 times the amount of paperwork as a normal, transaction should be. The second con is the Section 8 inspections. So I get the point that the property should be in good overall condition and everything. However, my experience with Section 8 inspections hasn't been so great. I'll get violations because I don't have 10 smoke detectors in an 800 square foot apartment. But then the inspector won't check that the water works or the hot water or things like that. I had a property recently that I renovated, and so I probably should have double checked, but I assumed that the water was working, the heater was working, everything like that, because it was basically fully renovated. And then not only that, but I had my the Section 8 inspector go over and walk through the property and everything like that. It passed the Section 8 inspection after all these smoke detectors and paint on the outside, chipping, very, very minor stuff like that. However, what I didn't realize is that the Section 8 inspector doesn't even check the water, the heating. They check really weird and odd things that, I'm used to home inspections, where a home inspector is just going to kind of check everything because they want the house to be in working order. But I've just found the Section 8 inspections to be a little bit tedious and just not, for the most part, honestly, not very helpful. So I was luckily able to get through that, but that is definitely a con. The third con is that depending on the type of voucher or Section 8, and there's so many different types of voucher programs in Section 8, so I'm more talking about Section 8 on a higher level, but sometimes they're not going to cover all the rent. So let's say your rent is $1,000 per month. The government might cover $500, and then the tenant's going to have to pay the other $500. So that's why I prefer working with this company, because I'm look, I want 100% paid by the government. I don't want to have to track anyone down for rent whatsoever. So I would highly recommend trying to find a company that can assist you with this, or if you're doing it yourself, just make sure that the government pays basically 100% of the rent if you can. The fourth con, and this is more what people say about Section 8, more of the reputation with Section 8, not necessarily my opinion, but they say because it's lower income and the person doesn't have anything invested because the government is paying all the rent, that they're not going to take as good care of the property. And my opinion on that, I think no matter, there's people in super high income, super low incomes, everything in between, that can be difficult, right? So you just have to get a good feeling on whoever you're letting into your apartment building or property. You need to find out why they left their last place. You do your background check. If someone has 3 previous evictions, maybe it's not the best person, regardless of their income, maybe it's not the best person to let into your building. So that's why you want to work with a good property manager and make sure you choose someone that, you have a good feeling about. The next con with Section 8 is that you're still working as a landlord. Even though the Section 8 resident has a case manager and someone kind of assisting them, that case manager is basically just echoing whatever the resident says. They're not the property manager or anything like that. They're not taking any work off your plate. In fact, if anything, the case manager is probably giving you more work because they're kind of relaying what the tenant is saying to you. So now you have 2 people asking you to, hey, fix this, do that. So you still have to get, either find a good property manager or set up a good property management type of system to handle all of this. If you're looking to get into Section 8 rental investing, definitely reach out to me in one of the links below. And overall, I think Section 8 is great. There's definitely more like paperwork and a little more hoops you need to jump through, but you should definitely look into Section 8. You can get sometimes substantially more rent every single month, and it's guaranteed, so you never have to worry about chasing people down. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.